Hello and welcome to the Ireland on the Fly podcast about the people and places of fly fishing in Ireland. And for this latest episode, we're speaking to Stan McArt, a hugely successful loughs angler who's been capped 29 times for Ireland and at 78 years of age is still going strong on the competition scene. Tom, the return of competitions for you, it's been hugely welcomed, I'm sure. And just like the turnout at the Irish Spring Angling Fair last weekend, like you can see with anglers, there's some kind of sense of normality coming together. And, one of the things I suppose that stood out for me at the fair was just people saying, isn't it great to just be, being able to do these things again, come together, and you kind of get that sense of camaraderie and normality kind of returning to the fly fishing scene.
Yeah, it's great. It really is, as you said, back to some sense of normality. We were talking about the show there. You were saying it was great. Fortunately, I couldn't get down to it because I'm busy guiding this time of year. But talking to a couple of people that have been there and yourself, just saying absolutely fantastic to be able to go to an event like this again. We've missed them for so long.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's great that they're on. But like the exact same feeling with the competitions. Competitions are back on the run again, and after a 2-year hiatus, and it's great. It's great. I've been in a couple of them, no success, but it's not all about that. It really isn't. And one coming up this weekend now, which is the ITFFA Connacht Cup at Lough. So I'm looking forward to them. It's great and very interesting. There, when we were talking to Stan, there's such a social aspect of it, and that's the bit I like. They're not everybody's cup of tea, Darren. I know that, and you meet people who have bad experiences with them and everything. And I'm not saying that doesn't happen, but like on the main part, there's a really good atmosphere in it. And I think Stan touched on something very good there when we were talking to him, when he said, if you be in the boat with somebody and no problem telling them what you caught on or whatever. And that happens with most people. And he says, that person will leave the boat that evening as a friend of you, as a friend of yours. You quite often, the morning of a competition, you get into a boat with a stranger. And by the evening time, you could leave with a friend for life. And that's the beauty of it. You get to fish with other people that you wouldn't normally get to fish with. And that's a huge aspect of it.
And the other thing I got from it as well is it's that coming together of ideas that actually drives on the sport. I know a bit more maybe kind of from the river side, and I've read up on it more in the sense of what we learned from, the Europeans, whether it was the French, whether it was the Czechs, and how they really brought on new ideas in terms of the development of nymphing and all that side of it. And really got that from Stan in the sense of what you could learn from especially the English anglers, maybe in terms of the still waters there, the ideas that they brought, and that Irish anglers, like Stan talks about the boobies, wasn't it? He was fishing.
Yeah, that was actually great. It was great. And I think the funniest thing he said was the first time he was going to try it, when he tried it on, and they got the guy in the boat just sort of looked at it. But it worked. But you've got to try these things. And that's it. That's the thing about competitions. It drives people to try different methods, different ideas. No, they don't always work. But because they're tried, people will find out. And the boobies was one. The other thing, which I thought was very interesting that he said, was, how they've ended up finding fish in Lough, Daphnia feeders out in the open water, which would have stemmed from competitions in Lough Mask in the World Cup, and a drive to find different methods and different fish. Yeah, it's great. And, that is another aspect of it.
And it filters down then, from the competitions level down to the ordinary anglers then, and it's funny, what was once maybe kind of frowned upon or laughed at then suddenly becomes the kind of new go-to method.
The norm. Yeah, I can remember being asked in all sincerity by people, would you ever catch a brownie on a boobie? Wild brown. Do you ever catch a wild brown on a boobie? And you do.
Yeah,
you do, and there's more about that.
Shows you, yeah. Okay, so look, we might move on to have a listen to what Stan has to say.
Yeah, no, but with Stan as well, with all the caps he has and a lifetime experience of angling and competition fishing, you could really get, he still has that enthusiasm. And he's sort of saying, the night before he's going to, maybe come down and fish carb or fish a place that, he finds it hard to sleep. I mean, that's great. Yeah, that's great. I mean, it just shows what angling and fly fishing can do for some of us, and still does for us, even after years of experience.
Keeps you young.
So we started off with Stan. I asked him, because he's from Garva. He's not exactly right beside the major locks in Ireland. Where it all started from on the competition scene.
I did a lot of rubber fishing, Tom. I lived actually, I'm originally from Ballymoney, County Antrim, and I've done a lot of rubber fishing at that time. And then there was a challenge came one time with three of us. We decided we'd fish an Ulster Championship one time. So we fished the Ulster Championship and we qualified from the Ulster Championship to fish the National. So that was our first outing. Three of us never was in a boat before, Tom, in our life. And you wouldn't believe where we went to.
Where'd you go?
Outer on the other side of Galway to fish coral. And Tom, that was an experience I never forget. You know what I mean? I qualified. That was my first time ever qualifying for the Irish team. That was in Lough Corrib. And the boatman, I thought, you know, whenever you get into a boat, Tom, he would just fish around the area. But my boatman was from Greenfields. He was. And my first stop, Tom, was in Greenfield Bay. And he took me right enough. It was a great boatman. I can't remember his name, but it was a great boatman. And I said to him, why? Well, he says, I wouldn't know the outer side of the lake. My fishing is done on the Greenfield side. So I said, that suits me, Gran. I said, you go where you want to go, and I'll fish, and we'll see what happens. And I can remember I had 5 fish on that day, and I qualified. I think maybe 4th or 5th at that time, you know. And that was my first experience of boat fishing on the Lough Corrib.
Wow, that was fairly into the deep end. So that was your first ever time on Lough Corrib.
And that was yeah. And you get that was, Tom, 1981. That's whenever I qualified. My first fishing away at that time was to Chew Valley.
At Chew Valley in the South Valley, that was your first cap.
Yeah. And that is a story, Tom, that I have to tell you about that story, Tom, that be my first international, and the enthusiasm that I had, you follow me, I had to leave from home to go to Dublin Airport to get the plane. Going out of Belfast, down the M1, the car started backfiring, Tom. It wasn't going well. And you know what I did do? You know the reservation at the centre of the motorway? I seen the gap in the reservation. Straight through the gap, come up the far side to go back into Belfast again. Wasn't 100 yards all. I got, nah. The police, and they pulled me in and they said, you know what you did there? I said, I did, surely. I says, I'm awfully sorry, but I says, it's the excitement of going. He said to me, where are you going? I said, I'm going to fish for Ireland and I have to be at Dublin Airport at a certain time. And he said to me, you know, that was a terrible thing you did. I says, I honestly do know what was terrible. But he says, right, he says, follow me. And the police car took me up onto Isaac Agnew's garage. It was a Volkswagen car I was driving. And I actually hired a car from them, Tom, left the car to get fixed, headed back down to Dublin, got into Dublin Airport, the plane was taken off. So I missed the plane. But I went and bought a ticket, Tom, another ticket to take me over to England. I went over and I flew into Birmingham, and I got the train from Birmingham to a place, Kelso, where the team was staying at. I arrived at the hotel at 11 o'clock at night, and the team was there, and they were, Tom, you wouldn't believe, you know, the gratitude that I got for making the effort, what had happened to get to the team. And that night at the hotel, they were more than good, Tom. I was only a young fellow then, Tom, and the team was, and what they did do, a story that I'll never forget, Tom. They actually said to me, says, Stanley, he says, you've made a lot of expense coming here. I says, but I didn't mind the expense. I says, I had to get here one way or the other. I was getting here, it didn't matter what way I was going to get. So they actually got together and bought me my airfare, Tom, for going over the expenses, and they paid the expenses. And that's the story of my first international. and something you just cannot forget, Tom, you know. But it was the stories that you have through fishing over the years are phenomenal, Tom. I just don't forget them, you know. So
you weren't going to miss that one, were you? You really weren't going to miss it.
I wasn't going to miss that, Tom. And you know, to crown it all, we finished second, Tom, in Chew Valley at that time. We finished second, Tom. We had a photograph up at the stairs in the fishing room of all the team members that was there. It was, and a lot of them now passed away, Tom. But it's something that I can look back for. At that time, 1981. And then in 1986, I got the honour, Tom. I'd actually fished 3 times from 81 to 1986, and I got the privilege of being captain of the Irish team. And I was only a young fellow at that time, and what you say, the feeling that I had being asked to be captain for a young fellow, I just couldn't get over it, you know. And there were newspapers up here. They got to hear about it, and there was a whole write about it here at the local papers here, Tom. Whole write up about it, and that's something I have photographs and things taken, memorabilia that I just will not get rid of, you know. Something you never forget, you know. So that was my first experience fishing an international, Tom.
That was unreal. Where, when you were captain, that first time you were captain, where was that international, Stan?
It was in Chew Valley, Tom.
Oh, it's Chew Valley again. Yeah.
Back to Chew Valley again, yeah. And the photograph is something that I keep looking at. Never going to know them up with fishing flight iron there. And some of the faces. I was a great friend of them. I'm sure you probably know him, the late Christy Slater. You remember Christy Slater? Christy Slater, you know, Christy Slater actually took me under his wing at that time. And whenever he was going to fish anywhere, an Irish team, it wouldn't go unless I was going. That's how, you know, I befriended him that much, and I was a good friend right to the last. And he took me and he showed me the
very good angler. In fact, with Christy was from Mullingar. Christy held the record for the Irish caps before you, didn't he?
He did, surely. Yeah. He did, surely.
26, didn't he?
26 caps, yeah. 26 caps. And
see what you did to him for him being so nice to you.
he said to me, just a few years later, he says to me, "You'll surpass that, all right." He said, "The way you can fish." You know,
did he say that to you? Yeah.
I did, surely. I remember the last time we actually fished, Tom, before he took on well, and we were in Grafton. We were actually going to Grafton, and he wouldn't go. It wasn't going. And they asked me, and I rang him. And I says, "Christy, come on." He says, "I'm going." He says, "And I'm on the team." He says, "I would like you to come along." So he did come, and that was his last thing on fishing an Irish team, Tom. So
that was his last cap.
That was his last cap. Yeah, it was, surely. But he had actually, Tom, which I never did. He was able to qualify twice on the 1 year. You know, when we have 2 chances there. You have the autumn team and the spring team, and he qualified for both of them because years gone by, it's not the same profile we have now, Tom. If you stayed on, if you were in the top 4 years gone by, you stayed on, automatically stayed on. You know what I mean?
There was a rollover start if you were in the top 4 of the team in the actual international match.
That's correct.
You kept your place. You kept your place.
Yeah. I did that a good 2 times too myself, Tom.
Did you? Yeah.
I did. That helped you, but
actually, you're talking there about a few places, and because I was going to ask you, outside of Ireland, let's say we talk about that, but outside of Ireland, where was your favourite venue? I imagine you might tell me Chew, but no, maybe not. Where was your favourite venue?
Lake Menteith.
Ah, yeah. Yeah.
Lake Menteith. And I tell you, I remember Loch Leven and you know Joe Crane. You know
Joe Crane very well.
Joe Crane came and we were fishing Loch Leven at an international, and we out round this corner. There's a wee bay, and I think they called Victoria Bay, Queen Victoria. That's Victoria Bay, and here we've seen the boats, the English boats anchored, you know, sitting thing. And Joe said to me, he says, "Stan, them suspicious looking boys," he says, "there's something going on." So we did it over there, and as soon as we ran, away they went. But anyway, I got a trout, Tom. I hooked a trout with 3 pound, brought it to the boat. Well, the maggots, Tom, this is the truth. The maggot was dropping out it. It was. Joe said, "Would you look?" He says, "That boy was that, Joe." And he said, "Them boys had been ground baiting us." He said, "So we're going to fish this tomorrow." He said, "The maggots." You know what I mean? And we brought it on, and Joe said, "I'm going to tell the manager." He says, at that time, he says, "We'll tell him what was going on." But never was a thing done about it. So.
Nothing ever happened about it. My God.
Because I'm fascinated by this, Tom and Stan, is like, to be at that level where you're fishing, for your country and, internationals. How hard is it, to get to that level, and then to maintain that stand where you got 29 caps, to keep it at that, like how did fly fishing have to literally nearly take over your life to keep at that level? Like,
well, you talk about football, you have to practice, and fishing's exactly the same. And once you get onto a boat, every island you see or every shallow you see, you're expecting fish on it. So you're trying all the tactics you can think in your head to catch you fish. And if you keep going on and doing that, you will get better and better and better. And then I said, if you're fishing with your boat partner, you watch what he's doing. And if he's catching fish, you watch what way he's catching them, his retrieve. They'll always tell you the flies, there's no worry about that there. His retrieve is very crucial in fishing to this, even for rainbow fishing or even for brown trout fishing. Some people, I'm sure you've seen it whenever people say, if you're out fishing, especially the Irishmen, they lift the rod and they dabble up over the wave. That has all changed now. It is. And now it's as fast as a retrieve as you can get. The dabbler was brought into the equation a few years ago. And that was a thing that changed the fly fishing, because it was always floating line and a double at the top. Now it's DI3s, and you go to DI5, or you go to sweep lines. Them is all that come in now to brown trout fishing, wild brown trout fishing, because the fishing has changed that much that the fish is no longer on the surface level as they used to be. So now you have to get them to go down to them. And the whole thing, to me, I always thought the whole secret was that whenever you made up your mind what you were going to fish that day, you looked at the weather, you looked what way the wind direction was coming. And that told you what way to fish. And we today, if I'm going fishing, that's the first thing I'd find out, what was the weather like, what wind direction is. And then that you know exactly where you're going to the lake, where to go to,
And tell me this, Dan, is the beauty of kind of the competitions is that you actually get to learn and to see how other countries and other places and other anglers are doing new methods. And that's the kind of real maybe genius of these competitions. And that's really kind of where the innovation and developments come from then, is it?
That is exactly where it's come from. The angling over the last number of years have changed dramatically, because there's a younger generation and they're keener to fishing now than we were whenever I was a young fella. Now, and they're learning quicker, because the rainbow fishing now has come into Ireland in a big way. And people, I think the most important thing they did do, whenever they stocked Loch Lean at Castlepower with rainbows, now there's a lot of anglers go to fish Loch Lean. That learns them what way to fish rainbows. It's a completely different method fishing rainbows than it is fishing brown trout. And once you learn what way to fish rainbows, what depth they're at, the speed of your retrieve, your flies is most important as well. The size of the flies is very important. That is whenever you learn. Because once you get on to that there, you'll never forget them things. It's just like you've a memory. And that goes on, and that stays in your head forever, in your memory, and you won't lose that.
Can I just one more follow-up question on that? And Tom, you might jump in here as well. Stan, you were saying because of recent years, the way fishing has gotten, you having to, the floating line, you're not fishing that anymore. You're having to go deeper. Why is that?
I think it's maybe pressure fishing. Brown trout fishing over the years. Whenever we were fishing, if you would have seen probably 20 boats out during the mayfly, for instance, you had a great time. But now we have what we call now the Duffer's Fortnight. You heard that phrase before. Now everybody that has a boat is on for that fortnight fishing the mayfly. Some of them haven't a clue about fishing mayfly, and some people, the first thing whenever you're fishing, you catch a fish, you look out round the back of your boat, and the 3 other boats come behind you. You will not have a second chance on that drift, and that's just pressure of fishing. More people has, I would say, probably more leisure time, and now they're actually taking up fishing to this, and that is why you've pressures on the big brown trout lake fishes. They're all the same,
It's kind of a double-edged sword, isn't it? Like in the sense of we want more people fishing and enjoying it, taking up the sport, but then it also means
that is correct. That's what's happening. It's sad, that the brown trout fishing, the wild brown trout fishing, have deteriorated over the last number of years, and I honestly think that that's pressure fishing. Not only that, I am a great believer in catch and release for brown trout fishing, and wild brown trout fishing in particular. Every fish you get should be released, because if you take that fish and hit them in the head, there's nobody else who's going to get a chance to catch them again. And that's the bit I try to emphasize to people. Wild brown trout, put them back again. Give somebody else a chance to catch that fish. So that's fishing for you now, the way things have changed.
Yeah, very interesting. No, I agree with you there, Stan, particularly as well on the fishing pressure, particularly in May. What you said there, you catch a fish in May, you look behind you, and next thing you're thinking of doing the drift again, but you won't, because about 3 or 4 drifts, guys queuing up behind you. And yeah, it's very true what you said. No doubt the pressure on that, and I suppose we have to respond to different methods to try and catch the fish with different styles and something that they're not used to.
That's right, Tom. That is correct. Yeah, and I think that brown trout, white brown trout, they're educated, Tom. People think they're a dumb animal or a dumb fish. Just a matter of throwing out a fly and take it. That's not like that anymore. Maybe years going by it was like that, but not anymore. You have to be really good at fishing, Tom, and you know that yourself. To know where to go to, and know what flies to put on. And I think that's very important. Whenever you're anybody's taking up fishing, that's not a thing you're going to learn overnight. That takes years and years of experience to be good.
It's actually funny you mentioned that about the educated fish. I was actually speaking to David Norman, who's a bass fishing guide in West Cork, the other day, and I remember the first few times when I was fishing with him, and he's gone away from the daytime fishing for bass, and he's concentrating more on the nighttime fishing, because he says it's you have a better chance of catching. And it's the exact same words he used. The bass are getting educated, he says, because of fishing pressure. And it's fascinating. We're talking about wild brownies in the lake, and we're talking about bass on an Atlantic coastline, and it's the same.
It's actually the same, is right. Yes.
Yeah. I think, like it's what you said there, both of you, it's a survival instinct. If the fish doesn't adapt, they don't survive. So and they're wild. Yeah.
That's correct.
They're wild. It's funny. The only time I'll ever see fish near to the boat, just what you said there, the only time I ever see brownies on the lake here near to the boat is when I'm doing the nighttime fishing on the dry buzzer.
Yes.
It's the only time. I don't know if you see it as well, Stan, in evening time. It's the only time they're not afraid of the boat, because they can't really see it.
The lake comes alive, Tom. I would say the lake comes alive. No, I think they know. I actually think they know. It comes a certain stage in the day there that the boats is off it, and they have the whole lake to themselves, and they can come and they can cruise about. You know what I mean? And that's great. I always think it's great. Like yourself, if I have to go to fish like the Corb, I'm to go to a 6-hour journey for me. Do you follow me? And if I go to the Greenfield side, it's 4 hours. You know what I mean? Or to go to Mask, it's 4 hours. But you don't mind it. If you're keen on fishing, mileage makes no difference to you. You just cannot wait. I would still be as excited, Tom, to go to fish now as it would have been up to 50 years ago. If I was to say to Guy, we're going fishing in the morning, I could hardly sleep at night, Tom, because I know I'm getting up and going fishing. That's silly for an old man like me to say that, but that enthusiasm, Tom, I can't get rid of it. That's just been honest, it's something that I think I know. And because that I river fished in my young days, and then I got this challenge of going on to fishing lakes, that really got me going, Tom. You know what I mean? I still river fish, but not the same extent as I fish the lakes now. You know, I love it, Tom, still to this day. I just can't get enough of that. That's true. You know?
What is it about the lakes, Dan? What is it about the lakes as opposed to the river?
The towns. If you go into a river, you can wade a river, and it's only 30 yards wide. You follow me? But you step into a boat and get to a lake and look up the lake and see nothing but water for miles and miles and miles. And then you say to yourself, where on earth place am I going to catch fish here? But that's experience will tell you where to go to over the years. You know what I mean? We fish shallows and you fish around rocky shores, rocky points, things like that. You get to know where the fish will be. I mean, like a mask, you take the mask in there. I think it's maybe am I right saying, Tom, that 20 years ago they realised that there was fish in the ditch?
Yeah, about 20 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah,
about 20 years ago. Yeah.
Years ago. They realised then there were fish in the ditch. Now, we have got the state now in Lough for instance, now. Comes the month of July to that. We go out into the ditch, Tom, and we're getting exactly the same as you was getting in Cork. And that's so strange. They never realised. I mean, you took a lake, and you took mask, could be some places in Lough Erne could be 100 feet deep, Tom. You follow me? When you're drifting out there, and these fish comes up, and they're exactly the same type of fish that you would get in mask. They're these dark coloured fish. You know what I mean? From £1.50 to £2, and that's the maximum. But they're there, Tom. And it's only this last 10 years in Lough Erne that we've actually got used to that they are there. You know, and just see the mayfly.
That's amazing. And do you think, Stan, that was on account of that lads were catching them on Lough Mask and they said, sure, let's try the deeps on Lough Erne? Is that what happened, do you think?
That's exactly, Tom. That's what the fellas in Lough, we have a club here at home, and they went down to Mask and they caught the fish out in the deep in Mask, and we brought it up here and they said to me, well, if the fish in Mask out in the deep, surely there has to be fish out in Lough Erne. And we did, went out and we started to get them, Tom. And people says to me, you're crazy. You mean you're a mile out into the middle of the lough, Tom, and they're not an island around you, nothing but water. And somebody says to me, but they said, well, how do you get fish? I said, it's just like this. The fish are there. They're there to be caught. And if you had the right gear and the experience to fish, go on and drift and keep on drifting. And the mayfly, say for instance, the mayfly or the olives are going over the top of your head and they're drifting out top. You keep drifting after them because you ensure if the fly's being drifted out, the fish will be out there to get them. And that's exactly the same as happening in Mass. And that's the same in Lough Erne. Exactly the same.
That's amazing. And is it more or less the same type of flies, like with a bit of flash, the octopuses?
Exactly the same, Thomas. We would fish in Mass. You know what I mean? And now we have adapted something, Tom. You've probably heard tell it maybe now that we fish a booby. Maybe you heard this.
Yeah.
And that's phenomenal, Tom. And I mean it phenomenal during the mayfly and the Erne. Out in the deep, and I mean out in the deep, Tom. But floating line, maybe with two good decent eyes on them, and you stuck it back high. The ferocious take you get, Tom. That's something we've worked on over the years, and it definitely does work, Tom.
It's very interesting you should say that there, Stan, because you look at, there's two examples you gave there, and this is the thing that I said, these have stemmed from competition fishing. Like the use of the boobies have come from the likes of yourself going over and fishing reservoirs in England, coming back with boobies and trying them on wild browns. And let's say trying the deeps in the Erne. Well, that essentially has come from the World Cup in Lough Mask.
Correct, Tom. I remember you're talking. I remember fishing an interprovincial, Tom, in Loch Mask a good few years ago. And I was scared, Tom, to put the booby on. You follow me? Because I did put it on, and the boatman was sitting there laughing at me. And that's and I says, "You're not laughing at my booby." He says, "I've never seen the like of that in my life before." Well, hey, Tom, I didn't take 2 throws with it. Up come this way, down got him. Well, hey, I'll not tell you what he says to me, Tom. he was flabbergasted. He says, "He says, I have never seen it. I finished up maybe 5 or 6 fish that day, Tom. And we're not provincial." And he said, I actually gave him the cast of flies and I was finished. And I said, "You may fish that and you may not. But I said, you've seen now that does work." And he says, "It definitely does work." He says, "If I have seen it in own 2 eyes, and people can't say to me that I'm telling them a fib, because that's actually the truth." I said, "As you know, that's phenomenal, Tom. The things you do to improve your fishing, you have to change, you have to adapt, you know." And I think that's a lot of people nowadays, a younger generation, as doing that, Tom, because the fishing has changed dramatically over the last number of years. So they have to change now, adapt to a different method of catching.
I was going to say, Stan, as well, I suppose with the internet and videos and, information is being shared all the time from all over the world, like, isn't it? Like,
yeah, that has surely. I think that's a great thing too, since these iPads came on. People can send messages, they can send photographs of where they were fishing, and getting the fish. And if you see somebody, for instance, there this evening, I'm sure maybe you've seen it there, that Damien Walsh, it must have been the Corb Toby, or fishing this Campo. And he had one fish, Tom, must be 8 pound, 8 9 pound.
I haven't seen that yet, actually.
I have. Someone found it. That actually worked the night when I came home, Tom.
Yeah.
And that, if somebody sees that, I want a piece of that. You know what I mean? There's an actor. I want a piece of that. That was in the Corb. That takes people to them places, Tom. No, you have to. There's no use in sitting in the house watching a video and saying, "Oh, that was easy fishing." Go and try it yourself and see how easy it is.
And see how it's done.
That's to me. You have to learn to fish properly, Tom. It's not learn overnight.
Although you've just said something there now, Stan, it just made me think. If we had this communications back in the 80s, we'd never had the dabbler, because the dabbler only came along because it was a botched phone call.
That was right. Tell
me that.
You see, it was relayed. Dressing was relayed over the phone, Stan, wasn't it?
The whole thing was relayed over Donald McLaren. I rang and asked Freddie for the time of the gosling.
Yeah.
And he tied up the fly exactly the same as the gosling. But we would put on the gosling ring wouldn't be bronze mallard.
Yeah.
So
Donald had told him mallard, and he had thought he meant bronze mallard, but he actually meant the white speckled mallard.
Right, Tom, yeah. So he told him he kept it over with bronze mallard. I'm sure that took off big time. It was a phenomenal fly for years.
Yeah,
then
still is.
Every fly, Tom, it's a good fly. And then all of a sudden, somebody will tie it, a green Peter dabbler, what we call a mayfly dabbler. They're all being changed, Tom. Dedicating one fly was the dabbler. There were 2 of them. To me, there's 2 of them, and the only 2 dabblers that's worth fishing to the present day is the Clark one and the golden one. And every other man, what an angler's like, Tom. I do it myself. I won't blame anybody else, because I got to the fly tying room there, and the first thing came into my head is a dabbler. And you would change it, actually put something stupid on it. And then you say, "Oh, that looks well." Now you go and give it a throw. So it's strange way fishing has changed, Tom, over the last number of years. Flies, yourself, Tom, it's like flies have changed dramatically, compared to what we got up to 30 years ago. You know what I mean?
I get the real sense of Stan and Tom is that, as well as kind of the sharing of the information from the competitions, it also helps to kind of blow kind of traditional conservative attitudes, in kind of the local areas. Oh no, we never did. That's like you were talking about the booby there, Stan.
Yes.
You'd have never tried it if you hadn't, seen it working in the competitions. And
that's right. You definitely wouldn't. You know what I mean? To somebody actually sees it working, And then they know themselves, if you were in the boat along with me, right, no, and you see me fishing the booby and catching fish, you would automatically then say, that is working. I mean, give me one. You know what I mean? But you wouldn't have to give, because I'd be giving you one anyway. But that's what happens. And then he takes it, and then he goes somewhere else, and he fishes it, catches fish with another partner, and that's how it escalates, you know. And that's why the dabbler boats are good. They follow me over the years, because the more anglers kept it to themselves for a few years there. Then everybody got it, and then everybody was catching fish on it.
You're kind of the pioneers, like, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. It just seems to escalate. You know what I mean? There always is something that if you create a fly that's consistently catching fish, you follow me? That is what people's looking for. You will give him one, and he will take it, and he will tie one. He will give it to his friend. His friend will give it to his friend, and that's why it comes in. Everybody's out, and they're catching fish on that particular fly. I love to see that. I'm not one of these people that can hide flies, because there's no point in hiding flies. Give your flies that you're catching the fish on your partner, because if you come in at the end of the day and he has 6 fish and you have 6 fish, you're friends for life. But go out and fish and you catching 6 fish in one fly and him comes in with no fish. That, I'm not going to say the words that he'd probably say to his friends, look, say, that so-and-so fished all day and got 6 fish. He says he couldn't even have the decency to give him a fly. But that's not fishing to me. That's not the way they're fishing here. You know, friends is friends, and and that's how you get them through fishing. I have a lot of good friends through fishing, and that's basically because they've given me a fly and I've given them a fly. You know.
Tell me this: who are the great innovators, like in terms of kind of through the competition? Like I was thinking in terms of, you know, river fishing. You know, you think of kind of the Czechs and, you know, maybe the French as well, in terms of, you know, what they've kind of advanced in terms of the skills necessary. Like, or is it a case of everybody's just learning off each other and pushing each other, or is there anybody leading the way? Like,
no, you'll always get an angler or come up with a new method. It doesn't matter, you know. I mean, even when he started his fishing, maybe produce something, a fly that will catch fish. Now, for instance, have you seen in the rivers now, they're fishing these gold heads, these what they call these jigs now. They're actually now fishing salmon with these and catching salmon on them. Do you follow me? And that, I mean, I do it over my own river here at home here, the salmon, and we're catching salmon on these gold heads. And that seems crazy, but that's a method of fishing now. There's a private fishery here on the River Bann here, and Cairn Row we call it, and it's a primary bait of salmon fishing you can get in Europe. And it was that good that they actually banned the boys using these gold head baits, because they were catching salmon after salmon. And that is the gospel truth. It's a new method of catching salmon, and everybody's taken on to it now. And that's just something that somebody has created out of actually nothing. Just a river fly, they tried it different ways. And I think the French boys, remember right in saying this, was the first instigator of these, what they call the tungsten bait. That's what they're used nowadays. And then that escalated, and people was fished them here, and then they brought them over here. And good anglers, they would use them. And once they use them and start catching fish, that's like lifting the phone or put it on the news and say such and such was out today and get 3 or 4 fish on a bait. Everybody's had it there. It's a new, just a complete new method. It's something, you know, in fishing it will never change. There'll always be somebody, an angler, that will come up with some new method. You know, there has to be like that, because you would get bored of going out every day doing exactly the same thing, whereas somebody comes up with a new method. That you're back to school again and learning what way to do it.
That's the great thing about the sport, isn't it? Like, you know, because it's, you know, you're always learning. There's always something new.
Oh yeah, I always say there's not an angler in the world knows it all. You couldn't know it all. Somebody will be better than you, Dave, because of new method will come up. You know.
Yeah, I think it's great actually, and funny you touched on it there with the boobies. And when I started using the boobies on the wild browns, and when they started working, it's actually really nice. And you go, wow, this does work. Well, you know,
Yeah, as a method that people would laugh at. Because
yeah, well, I actually was kind of laughing the first time it started working for me on mask. Now, I have to say, my own view is, I think you move a lot more fish sometimes because they'll chase after it.
Correct.
But like the fish started following me. I was actually laughing. I just go, my God, I'm fishing a booby on one of the premier wild brown trout lakes, and it's working.
That's it. But funny enough, I find out that Tom, the booby works better in the deeps for these Daphne feeding fish.
Oh yeah.
It's really doesn't work for the brownies around the shores, around the rocks.
I haven't. Although, have you tried it much on the shallows now? Now that said, have you?
No, I haven't done. I actually fish it just specifically fish it for the
deeps. Same as myself. Same. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's because the movement in the water are pulling fish up. You know, I mean, there's something that they see in the surface there. They don't realise it's a booby, but to them it's a fly. So it's that movement in the water, then they come up to it. You know, you're right what you said there. A lot of them come up and splash at it because they don't know what it is. You know, have you told the fish you're fishing a booby or somebody you were fishing a booby, they laugh at you, Tom. That was years gone by. They did laugh at you, but something that's common nowadays. You know.
Can I ask you, what's your favourite time of year to be fishing?
I love fishing. See, we would go out there on the first day of March in Lough Erne. I fish Lough Erne a good wee bit. First day of March, and that's the truth. That we get phenomenal fishing up until the end of March, maybe the mid-April, and then once the weather changes, if it gets very very cold, then the fishing finishes completely until the weather changes again. Fishing Lough Erne, we found that the best one for fishing Lough Erne is an east or a southeast wind. And people will say the east one's a cold one, but that's not a cold one. The northeast is a cold one, but the southeast, because they're still very close together there, there's a wee bit of heat comes along. That seems to turn the fish on down, you know. But we do that, and then we wouldn't fish probably this much. They would fish a bit of rainbow fishing until then. The start of May there. And then I love we go there and Tom knows it there, we go to the Corb there every year there for a week to duck fly fishing or the buzzer fishing. And I wouldn't miss it. Just be honest, I love that type of fishing, you know. That's a challenge. That's a new method of fishing being brought into the Corb and Mask the whole lot for this last 20 years. It's another something somebody's created, you know what I mean? And
once again brought in by competition fishing again, and everybody's enjoying it now.
That's right, Tom. That's just the way it works, you know. And if you didn't have them competition anglers, you wouldn't be getting them methods, Tom. That's just something. The competition anglers are bringing these new methods in, and that's how these new ideas have been created. You know. And
can I ask you, in terms of like a lifetime of fishing, what's the biggest changes you've seen in relation to, you know, the seasons, the environment, the flies? What have you seen?
I think the weather has got a big factor in it now. We don't have climate change. I've just been honest with you. I think climate change is a big factor in the way fishing is going at the present time. We used to get snow. I'm sure you remember we used to get snow in the month of November, December, maybe January. Now you very rarely see snow. You follow me? And then what creates down now, you get summer times during, say, September, October. You're getting winter months, but you're getting summer months then. So I honestly think the whole climate change is changing dramatically, and the fish as honestly think that the fish has to have a certain temperature of water in the water before they start feeding. If it's too cold, they just don't feed, you know, and that's my theory on the way the climate change is changing, the way fishing, the way fish feeds now, you know. And even there, and I'm sure you've seen it, maybe Tom would probably seen it, even you see if you're out fishing for rainbows there too, and you fishing for rainbows, and you get a nice soft, what we call a nice soft wave on it, you follow me? The fish will come up and rise on it. But if you get a hard, what we call a hard, watery wave on it, the fish won't feed, they go down. You know, we've seen that there this last number of years, a harsh wind, fish won't feed on it. You won't get them the same as the winter if it's a nice soft day. You don't get them the same. I mean, we're on now, we're on now to the month of May. And this year, for instance, that east one has stayed, and the northeast one has stayed in that arch since probably February, March time. And it's only today, the first time I've seen it actually changing to the west. And that's going to take, if that takes a week in the west, Mayfly will up there. Because that changes over the weather's changed, the temperature will come up. If you get the weather change, then the temperature, when the sun comes out, then the temperature comes up. Because the wind is active back to the north or to the south or west. And that's where the heat comes from. That's my theory on it there, but some people may have different thoughts, but that's my thought. I've been for a long number of years now, so.
Yeah, it's interesting, very true, I think, as well, Stan. So after all your fishing, what's your most memorable fish then? The most memorable fish.
Memorable fish, Tom, that I ever caught. I actually caught it in Rutland about, would it be 5-6 years ago? So it was. And it was 8 pound 6 ton. And it was the biggest brown trout was caught in Rutland that year. It was. And that was caught on a size 12 cormorant. That's just size 12 cormorant. That's unbelievable, But I didn't get it the day. If I got it the day of the competition, I'd have been well up, Tom, but I didn't get it. I got it this day.
But you still remember it. You still remember it. Of course, all the rainbows or the browns in Rutland are only stocked at £1, so they're virtually wild at that stage.
Oh, no, they're all stocked on, Tom.
They're all stocked in, but I know the stocking policy with browns, they only stock them in quite small. That's
right. That's right.
So
they
grow on, don't they?
But I've a 7 pound trout out of Loch Earn, Tom, during the Mayfly. Lovely. Numerous 3 and 4 and 5 pound trout out of Loch Earn.
And tell me this, is Earn your favourite loch?
It would be, Tom, because it's local to me. I mean, I'm only an hour and a half from it, Tom. If I go to Emmy, I can go to Loch Earn, and I keep the boat in at Kesh. She stays in a farm down in Kesh, so it's only a matter of going down, hook it onto the back of the car, and I can go anywhere and go to Mask, Corb, you name it. It's sitting there for me, So, and but it's, Corb will be my second, Tom, because there's something special about the Corb that whenever you throw a line in the Corb, you don't know what's going to hook on at the end. Again, it could be a pound trout or it could be 10 pound. There's something special about it, Just because I've been at it that number of years, something special.
Something special indeed. Well, yeah, that's. Hey, Stan, listen, that's great. It's been absolutely great talking to you. Really great to hear from some of your experiences and what you have to say. So, listen, thanks very much. Thanks for joining us, Stan.
Welcome, Tom. It's good to chat to you.
Our thanks to Stan McArt for joining us on the show. So don't forget to rate, review, and follow the Ireland on the Fly podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from.
Plus, you can keep up to date on IrelandOnTheFly.com as well as on Instagram. And myself and Tom will be back with another episode about the people and places of fly fishing in Ireland.